No matter who you are, be it a philosopher, farmer, movie star, politician, artist, serial killer, undertaker, nymphomaniac, newsreader, teacher, pop star, doctor, shrink, TV evangelist, sports hero, lighthouse keeper, mafia boss, there's one thing you're going to need. The stupid things John Boyd Dunlop invented, second only to the wheel, is the dumbest thing ever invented. The tire. All it did was enable us to destroy things even faster. I'm not sure whether I hate technology or stupid people more. However, as much as I loathe tires, selling them brought me into contact with every kind of person imaginable. Geniuses and nutters, believers and atheists, the righteous and the perverted, eccentrics and dimwits, the beautiful and the botched. Most of the time it was a mundane grind, but sometimes a nutter or conspiracy theorist arrived to brighten things up. This was the payoff for an amateur anthropologist like me, and was the only thing that kept me going. Initially I used to think that surely with my incredible intelligence, I was meant for a higher calling than selling rubber donuts to donuts. I met movie stars, sports stars, pop stars, porn stars, TV stars, FHM models, politicians, business tycoons, journalists, authors, artists, con artists, investors, scamsters, and even notorious gangsters. One gangster's name was Yuri Ulianitski, also known as Yuri the Russian. Yuri owned a well-known brothel called the Castle in Cape Town and would often offer me a VIP card, but I never took him up on his offer, in case I ran into one of the insufferable arseholes I sold tires to. It was the ideal money laundering business. The day he first arrived at my shop in Tableview was hilarious in retrospect, but it was scary at the time. He stepped out of the long sleek BMW in his long sleek coat, designer shoes and suit, straight into a pothole filled with water, which I'd been fighting with our useless landlord to fix for weeks, warning him that if someone hurt themselves stepping into it, I would tell them to sue him. Talk about potluck. Of all the people I could ever imagine stepping into it on a miserable rainy day in Cape Town, Yuri Ulianitski had to be the first, and it almost caused him to lose his balance and fall over, but fortunately it only ended up messing up his shoes and the bottom of his trousers. He must have had a court case that day and couldn't have been too happy about it. I felt like drowning my landlord in that pothole for a split second, and hoped that Yuri would not kill me in a split second. He was surrounded by 4 henchmen, including Igor Rusol, who looked more like an accountant than a gangster. But then again, so did Meyer Lansky, Al Capone's accountant. Rusol was second in charge to Yuri, and they were apparently best of friends. Rusol took over the Russian outfit after Yuri was assassinated in May 2000. I've always been extremely fascinated with the 1930s Chicago gangster era. Little did I know that I would star in the real-life movie of the current Cape Town gangster era. At first I thought they were coming to strong-arm us and sell us their protection services, but Yuri was only there as a customer on this occasion. He asked for a price on the best set of tires we could offer him, stating that he didn't want anything cheap, and he only wanted the best. The price was around 18,000 Rand. That's the best price I could give you, Yuri, I said, apologizing for the high price tag even after giving him the maximum discount possible. Ah, so you know my name, he gestured in mock surprise. Then he reached inside his coat and pulled out a shopping bag full of money. For a brief moment I thought he might produce something else to persuade me to give him an even better deal. But after taking a 5,000 Rand bundle of 200 Rand notes out, he told me there was 20,000 Rand in it and said, "Buy the guys some beers," playing on our name, the Tire Guys. Turns out our price was 7,000 Rand better than our competitor down the road. After that, we became the official supplier to the Russian mafia. They had quite a fleet of cars and went through tires fast. For some reason, Yuri took on the role of tire procurement for the operation. My partner Mark and I also achieved a measure of notoriety and were known as the mavericks of the tire game in Cape Town between 2000 and 2009. And Yuri enjoyed the unorthodox and eccentric way we operated. At the time, I also fancied myself as a bit of a stand-up comedian, and Yuri was a really cheerful and comical guy when he wasn't breaking knees. Whenever I asked him how business was going, he would always dryly reply, "Up and down." But the castle was more of a money laundering business than anything else. Most of his income came from the hotly contested night spot protection racket, and his bouncers were deployed at most of the city's popular nighttime hotspots. Yuri was also addicted to gambling and would often be seen in casinos, but he particularly took to horse racing because he could fix the results as a result of his association with horse racing owner Mark Liffman, another infamous Cape Town underworld character. Liffman would bribe jockeys to pull horses in, which in layman's terms means not win. Jockeys didn't earn themselves nicknames like Handbrake van Wyk and Freddy the Claw for nothing. They also didn't drive Ferraris and live in palatial homes earning R1,000 a ride. When one of the jockeys refused to hook a horse for them, they assaulted him and fired a few warning shots at him outside his home in Melkbos Strand. Shortly afterwards, Freddy the Claw hung up his whip. After this incident made the news, Liffman was warned off by the racing authorities and banned from attending any race meetings or entering any off-course betting facilities. Saps did nothing though. Liffman has also been in and out of court over his penchant for young schoolgirls. But his legal team, consisting of top Cape Town advocates, have done a wonderful job of keeping him out of jail. Several of Cape Town's top advocates have been milking it, providing counsel to the city's top gangsters for decades. They have protected the likes of Cyril Beaker, Mark Liffman, Jürgen Haaksen, who I don't classify as a gangster, and actually quite admire, and Yuri, who I do classify as a gangster, but could not help myself from admiring his human side. In Cape Town, you can get away with anything if you've got the money. You can even buy a judge. Ask Shreen Dewani and Jeanette Traverso. The corrupt old hag took a nice retirement package before she put her gavel down. But back to more honourable people. Before Yuri was assassinated in 2007, I got to know him very well. Although he was a notoriously ruthless and greatly feared gangster, he was one of the nicest, most caring and kind-hearted people you'd ever hope to meet outside of his profession. One day, after telling him about someone who had screwed my business partner and I over for R250,000, he opened his car boot and showed me his tools of trade. A baseball bat, an Uzi machine gun, and a few handguns in the boot. "You want me to fix it?" he offered, smiling. "It's only money, Yuri. There's no way I can ever harm someone over money," I replied, shocked at how casually he said it. He smiled and said, "Let me know if you want to change your mind. For you, I will do it for free," he added jovially. What made the whole thing even more ridiculous and surreal was that our shop was right next door to the local Tableview Police headquarters. I could see the superintendent in his office while Yuri was showing me the tools he had in his boot. Now, some of you may be asking how I could justify my friendship with Yuri. The thing that really struck me about him was his concern for his wife and daughter. He was obsessed with their safety. Whenever something went wrong with his wife's car or at their home, and he was out of town, he would call us and we would send our breakdown guys to help her out. He used to say, "Do what you have to do, no matter what it costs. I will come and pay you when I get back." And you could set your watch by it. If he said, "I'll be back on Thursday," he would walk in, put down a bag of money and say, "Keep the change for the guys. Thank you for helping my wife." And he would always leave something extra for beers. One of the most frequently repeated lines you will ever hear as a tire salesman has to be, "It's only my wife's car, don't put anything expensive on." Yes, ladies, that's what your loving husbands do when they take care of your car tires. In fact, I could tell which husbands loved their wives and which ones didn't. But Yuri was different. He only wanted the best for his wife. I've had many strange and bizarre experiences in my time. I've cheated death on numerous occasions in my many scrapes with the Grim Reaper. My life has been like a Forrest Gump movie. I was in the Dead Sea the day Sylvester Stallone almost died in it. And after quitting my job at a massive international tire company to open my own store, I cancelled my planned holiday to Greece. The ferry I was booked on sank that night. 83 people drowned. I told my partner Mark that no matter what happened with our new business venture, it had probably saved my life. I can't explain any of it. All I know is that life is not random. One night I was driving home from the Dias Tavern in Cape Town, one of my favorite places anywhere on the planet. As I approached a set of traffic lights on the Marine Drive Boulevard in Milnerton, I noticed a big black SUV coming over the Lagoon Bridge and heading toward the intersection at a very high speed. The lights were red for him and green for me, but it looked like he was going to run them and cross directly into my path. So I braked to avoid getting hit side on, but at the very last moment he stopped. As I drove past, I glanced at the car. It was a shiny black Audi SUV I'd seen before, though I couldn't place it at the time. I drove unshaken by the incident. If I'd looked in my rearview mirror, I would have seen Yuri Ulianitski being assassinated. When I heard about it on the news the next morning, I rushed to the TV to see what was going on. And I saw that SUV riddled with bullets right there where I last saw it. Apart from the assassins and his wife, I was the last person to see Yuri Ulianitski alive. Then the events of the previous night came rushing back to me. If I hadn't been there at that exact time, maybe he would have escaped. If that traffic light had been red for me and green for him, maybe Yuri and his 4-year-old daughter Yulia would have survived. A stupid fucking traffic light can determine your destiny. We were the only 2 cars on the road. How perverse is it that we both arrived at that light at exactly the same time? I suggest that those of you who believe in the Big Bang Theory and that evolution bullshit and think that life is random, think again. Nothing is random. Everything that happens to you has some kind of relevance and meaning. I had an affection for Yuri. I think he respected that I was non-judgmental and that he could trust me and vice versa. He was a larger-than-life character. He was also a walking contradiction, a ruthless gangster, but also a devoted family man and good friend. Somehow we just clicked. Ironically, the hit he offered to do for me involved a guy who was friends with his wife through his Russian bride. They would often visit each other's homes. The fact that he would do that to someone he knew, for me, is still something that I find perplexing. Yuri died on his 40th birthday on the 21st of May 2007. That he was set up is obvious. Selecting a restaurant on Woodbridge Island to celebrate his birthday was a fatal mistake. There's only one way in and one way out, and that is the bridge over the lagoon. Page 1 stuff in the Mafia handbook. The other fatal mistake he made was stopping to let me pass. I'd virtually come to a standstill, so we would not have hit each other. And even if we did, maybe that would have deterred them. Or maybe it would also have been my end. Maybe his decision saved my life. Even I seldom went there for this reason. Not because I was a criminal, but in case the cops are there with their breathalyzers, which is probably the only thing those useless corrupt swines ever did in order to be seen to be doing something. It was a Monday night, and as I said before, there was no car other than mine on either side of the boulevard. So my guess is that his assassins were waiting for him in Loxton Road on the opposite side and shot over after I'd passed and cut him off, and then opened fire on him, hitting him 20 times. One of them also decided to execute his 4-year-old daughter Yulia with a shot to the head. The reason for this has always led me to think that she may have known the attackers. They left his wife Irina for dead, but she was rushed to intensive care at a nearby hospital in Milnerton in critical condition and amazingly survived after being shot 5 times. She was an extremely athletic and fit woman who spent hours a day working out at gym. I never saw her in anything other than a tracksuit. I also never saw her smile. The gym was just a 2-minute walk from our place, and the shopping mall entrance was only 30 meters away. The only 2 things I ever saw Irina do were shopping and gym. Which means that maybe I'm being a sentimental fool. Maybe the only reason Yuri supported us so loyally was to keep his wife happy. If my theory on why they killed the child is correct, then Irina also knows who the attackers were. No arrests were ever made, and I very much doubt that the notoriously corrupt Milnerton police station conducted any serious investigations. Just about all of Cape Town's underworld live and ply their trade in their precinct, right under their noses. My brother was a cop for 7 years before quitting in 1994. Back then, the ratio of good cops to bad cops was about 50-50. Today, it's probably 10-90. And I surely don't have to tell you which direction it's moved in. I knew for a fact where the drug dens were, just a couple of blocks away from the police station, and my partner Mark even took them to the main address operated by the Nigerians, after his son had gone on another one of his crack binges and disappeared for days. No prizes for guessing what the Milnerton police did. Nothing, nada, nix. Another rather strange and curious fact is that Liffman was with Yuri and his family at that restaurant that night, but he left 15 minutes before they did. His involvement has never really been investigated. At the time, Liffman was still associated with Cyril Beaker, after Yuri and Beaker had split up after getting into a brutal street fight both claimed to have won. Ironically, Bika would face the same fate as Yuri when he was gunned down in a hail of bullets on the R300 in Cape Town in broad daylight 4 years later. After Yuri's murder, it was business as usual, and the prostitution, drug smuggling, and money laundering rackets resumed as though nothing had happened. All of these so-called underground venues in central Cape Town, Milnerton and Tableview, areas which were known to have been Ulianitski's turf, are still operating today with the blessing of the Milnerton police station. After being discharged from hospital after several months, Yuri's parents took Irina in, and she stayed with them for 4 years while she was recovering. She had no livelihood, and she vainly tried to sue Liffman for half of the business he and Yuri ran before the shooting. The case went on for 4 years and ended up when the assets forfeit unit moved in and claimed the late gangster's estate, leaving Irina penniless. My understanding is that in 2011 she was given a lifeline by the mob and became involved in the administration of the girls being imported from Eastern Europe for their clubs. This led to her being charged with human trafficking in 2016, but after many court appearances, the case seems to have mysteriously gone cold. My speculation is that Irina does know who murdered her husband and child, but cannot talk because it will cost her either her livelihood or her life. Silence is the only thing that guarantees her survival. Ironically, a year after Yuri departed, our business in Tableview was hit by the Nigerians. If Yuri had been alive, I believe that would never have happened. I also believe that after Mark took the Milnerton cops to their address, they were informed and targeted us. They got to 3 guys inside a shop, 3 of whom were serious drug users, 2 of them being Mark's sons. We had 1.6 million stolen under our noses in 3 months. The engine garage manager one day inquired whether I was aware that Mark's 2 sons were coming to the shop at 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning to collect tires, which they told him were for urgent, legitimate sales that had to be delivered before business started the next day. When I called a staff meeting later that day, I could tell by the white faces they were all involved. I told them I had surveillance tapes from the garage and that they had until 8 a.m. the next morning to come clean. One guy came forward. He knew that the fact that Mark's sons were involved could save his ass. The 2 little pieces of shit bankrupted their own father's business. I decided not to press charges. Fuck them both. Life will deal with them. And from what I hear, it most certainly is. I believe in stuff like that. I also do not believe in the farcical justice system in South Africa. I don't hate cops. I hate crooked cops. And in South Africa, there are more crooked cops than honest ones. I can tell you that if Yuri was still around when I found all of this out, I would have been extremely tempted to take him up on his offer. Not to kill them, but to put them in wheelchairs for as many months as possible to teach them a lesson. I needed another court case like I hold in the head. The High Court and I have had a few run-ins. It's a den of corruption. Don't let the robes and briefcases fool you. You stand no chance against any big business or powerful individual as an ordinary man in the street in the Cape Town High Court. It's a high society club. I soon realized that the only way to win cases against these big corporates, which were in my case, Engine and Pick n Pay, was out of court and to focus on their weakness. Bad publicity or making the individual involved's life a misery. I told the area manager of Engine, who loved his midweek golf, that I would make sure he never saw a golf course during the working hours again. He'd been refusing to give us permission to erect signage on the forecourt. Eventually, we decided that we would go ahead without permission. He then sent out an engine crew to take the signage down. In the ensuing standoff, I got him on the phone and played both cards to double whammy him. Apart from the golf course threat, I threatened to phone my Argus crime reporter connection. He put the phone down on me, and the next thing, the foreman's phone rang. The call only lasted a few seconds, and the foreman gave me a wry look and ordered his crew to pack up and fill in the hole they'd started digging. I considered it a good morning's work. The Pick and Pay guy's case was epic. We'd been embroiled in a silly servitude dispute which would require us to brick up the fire exit door, which we left rolled up during the day as an exit into the parking area, and this forced us to hire an attorney. The legal meetings went on back and forth until they filed a court case against us. I told Mark that it was time for a change of tactics. It was time to teach that Doos Sakkie a lesson. I gave the story to Johan Schronen, the Argus crime reporter, and he called Pick and Pay's head office to inform them. They requested a copy of the report which alleged Sakkie had a share in our competition down the road. In fact, it wasn't an allegation, it was a fact. We pulled the company registration details and he was a silent partner. The story goes that when they called Sakkie, who was on the beach in Australia, and just 3 days into his holiday, he almost had a heart attack. 2 days later, he was back in Cape Town and requested an urgent meeting with us. We went there with our lawyer, and after listening to Sakkie ranting about the spurious allegations we'd made against him, our lawyer looked at him and said, "So what's the underlying motive then?" Sakkie went blank, and his legal team excused themselves to caucus with their client. They returned about 5 minutes later without Sakkie and told us that they had decided that they would make an exception just for us. The reason I've digressed into these cases is to show you that you can still use the corrupt justice system without actually having to go through the farce of attending a court case. Publicity and inconvenience are great weapons when you come up against corporate wankers with chips on their shoulders. I hope you enjoyed this story. It's just one of 26 stories in the series adapted from my book, The Reluctant Kinsman, which you can order from me direct per email at 250 Rand a copy. The story in the book is far more detailed and graphic than this video. The strict censorship rules on YouTube prevent me from going into that type of detail. I will be releasing one new story a week over the next 24 weeks. If you would like to see them, please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell that appears after hitting the subscribe button. If you missed the first episode, don't worry. The stories are not sequential. You can find it in the channel's playlists. It's about a South African team of scamsters and their life in paradise scam in Thailand and the Philippines, who resorted to murder on at least 4 occasions that we know of, but several other people have also vanished without trace, so there could very well be more. Next week's episode will take you to the Angolan border. It's another story with a very bizarre twist of fate. For 13 years I never spoke about it, but I have never told the full story to anyone, and it's a very difficult story for me to tell. So until then, just from me, please feel free to comment on this video, and if you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel to keep on going, and it's totally free. Your support would be very much appreciated. Thank you for watching. God bless.